When the set of goods is indivisible, then it turns out that two natural criteria of fairness are incompatible. Namely, envy-freeness and Pareto efficiency are incompatible. So, to illustrate this, we're going to use an example from this nice paper, Paradoxes of Fair Division. So first of all, the reason that Pareto efficiency and envy-freeness may be incompatible is that there are situations in which no envy-free division actually exists. So imagine that we have 3 objects and 3 people. So we need to distribute the objects to each person. So naturally we have to give 1 object to each person. So say the objects are 1, 2, and 3, and we have 3 people, Anne, Bob, and Kath. Now, Anne's preferences over the objects are object 1 is ranked strictly ahead of object 2, which ranks strictly ahead of object 3. Bob agrees with Anne that object 1 is ranked first. He then ranks 3 second and 2 third. And finally, Kath ranks 2 first, object 1 second, and object 3 third. Now, any division we come up with, any allocation, is going to have to give object 1 to exactly one person, to either Anne or Bob. Naturally, whoever we give that to, the other person is going to envy that person. So it's not hard to see that there are, when the goods are indivisible, that there might be situations in which there just doesn't exist an envy-free allocation. So there are no envy-free divisions in this situation. However, there's a more substantive example where we actually have an envy-free division, and it turns out that it's not Pareto efficient, and in fact, we can't find any Pareto efficient division that is envy-free. So here's the example. Again, we have 3 individuals, Anne, Bob, and Kath, and now we have 6 objects. And these are the rankings that the individuals give over the 6 objects. So in order to create an envy-free division, we have to give 2 objects to each of the 3 individuals. So let's say we give object 1 and 3 to Anne, 2 and 4 to Bob, and 5 and 6 to Kath. And so now we can ask, is this envy-free? So is this envy-free? Is this an envy-free division? Well, let's look at Anne and Bob's point of view. So from Anne and Bob's point of view, Kath receives 5 and 6. They both rank 5 and 6 the lowest, 5th and 6th position, so the lowest position. So naturally, they are not going to envy Kath. Will Anne envy Bob? Well, Bob received 2 and 4. So each of 2 and 4 is dominated by some object that Anne receives. So object 4, Anne looks at object 4, she says, well, I'm happy. I don't envy that because I have object 3 and I prefer 3 to 4. Do I envy object 2? Well, no, because I have object 1 and I strictly prefer that to 2. What about Bob? So Bob doesn't envy Kath. Does Bob envy Anne? Well, he looks at Anne. Anne has object 3 and 1. But for similar reasoning, Bob says, well, I don't envy 1 because I have object 2 and I prefer 2 to 1. I don't envy 3 because I have object 4 and I prefer object 4 to 3. So this is, in fact, an envy-free division. But is it efficient? Is it a Pareto efficient division? It turns out, no. If we would give Anne objects 1 and 2, and Bob objects 4 and 3, and keep Kath the same, then Anne's allocation is better for her, Bob's allocation is better, but Kath's allocation remains the same. So this division, Pareto dominates the original division. And in order to see that, so just intuitively, it's possible to give Anne and Bob each their top 2 choices, and Kath her first and 4th choice. So this division, Pareto dominates my original division, but the question is it envy-free? Is this an envy-free division? So according to the Pareto efficiency criterion, we should prefer the division where Anne and Bob get both their first two choices, and Kath gets her first and fourth choice. However, it turns out that this division may not be envy-free. Well, why is that? Well, consider Kath looking at Anne's allocation. Anne receives objects 1 and 2. So the question is, will Kath envy Anne? Well, it's actually not clear given the information we have in this diagram, because Anne looks at her allocation. She says, well, I prefer object 2 to object 6. However, I have my top choice, object 5, and I prefer that to the object 1 that Anne has. So this allocation, this distribution of goods, does not guarantee envy-freeness. It very well might be that Kath would prefer to have her second and third choices rather than her first and fourth choices. Without any more information about Anne's preferences, cardinal information, how intense her preference is for object 5 over, say, object 1 and object 2, and how she feels about different combinations of objects, it's not possible to tell whether or not Kath really will envy Anne. But at least this division does not guarantee envy-freeness. So it's possible that Kath will envy Anne. So the only division that guarantees envy-freeness is the original division that we started with. This requires a bit of an argument, but intuitively note that under this division, everybody receives their top choice plus something else. So if we move away from that idea, from giving everybody their top choice, then it's natural to assume that at least one person may envy somebody else, whoever receives their top choice. So this is not a proof. You might want to go through and convince yourself that there is, in fact, no other division that guarantees envy-freeness. But this envy-free division is not Pareto efficient. So none of the Pareto efficient allocations guarantee envy-freeness.